some other topics here. Let's talk about these defence stories. Two really fascinating. The Armed Forces head, this is Chief of the Defence Staff, Admiral Radakin, warning in a speech last night that China is now a nuclear threat to the West. I mean, anyone with a nuclear weapon is a nuclear threat to the West, I would have thought. But also the Veterans Minister, an actual Defence Minister, this is Al Khan's, he has warned that the British Army would be basically wiped out in 6 months if we did go to a proper major conflict. You're the military man. What do you make of both of those statements?
Admiral Radakin, Chief of Defence Staff statements are exactly right. But it's been China's been increasing its nuclear arsenal, has about 500 warheads. It's trying to get up to the same number as the United States, which is about 5,000, of which 1,700 are deployed, and a similar number to...
You need a few, don't they?
You need a few to cut us out. Al Cairns, the Minister for Defence, People and Veterans, well, it is that time of the year. He's talking baubles. Complete baubles, because
you'll let that one through, won't you?
He's been to the Diane Abbott School of Mathematics, because if we look at the current size of the British Army is 72,500, or predicted in 2025.
That's for the full-time people.
That's the full-time people. Another 25,000 part-time people. Full-time people. 1,500 a day dying. He used the Ukraine statistics in his speech. It's more than that a lot of the time, but that's been the average. Defence Intelligence said today the average this year. That means that the British Army will last 48 days. But in reality, the fighting element of the British Army, 1/3 fighting, 2/3 supporting. So those that actually carry the weapons, know how to operate the weapons, will last 16 days. You know how long it takes to train a civilian into a soldier? 13 weeks. It takes another 26 weeks to train them into being a basic infantry soldier,
let alone a specialist.
Let alone specialist, and to be able to command.
We're in quite a lot of trouble now. Look, realistically, we are an island nation. You know, realistically, are we going to be invaded by Russia or anyone else anytime soon? Probably, as he pointed out, rather unlikely.
It's not going to happen, and we will only fight as part of a coalition. So our statistics are in there.
But still, we are not a serious fighting force. Well, other countries like Finland, you've just only recently joined the NATO forces, very wisely, and we're actually very lucky to have them, because they have something like 250,000 reservists, do they not? A lot of countries have been invaded by Russia, take this stuff a lot more seriously, and Finland knows to their cost. But an awful lot of countries, we think of these very sort of liberal democracies, like, of course, you couldn't have required military service, but actually an awful lot of countries like Israel, obviously, but many countries in Europe do actually have military conscription for everybody. Okay, you can go and do a civil job alternately, but they feel the need for people to be trained. I mean, in Switzerland, everyone's required to have be trained and have a weapon in their home to protect the country.
And certain European countries have stopped conscription. Germany, but it's now considering bringing it back in again. It's a lengthy time to train people and get them experience. But it's not just the people, and Al Cairns focused on the people. It's the tanks, the equipment, what they're going to fight with, what they're going to operate. We have currently no tracked self-propelled artillery pieces. It takes even longer to train people in artillery. We're going to have only 148 tanks. The Russians are losing between 10 and 15 tanks a day at the moment on the front line. Ukrainians are losing similar numbers. That means that we are going to last 14 days with our tanks. Now, the British Army is one of the more professional armies as part of NATO, and therefore would be put into the very front of the front line in its fighting. So we'd be fighting as part of a coalition, but we'd be at the tip of the spear because of the professionalism and capability we've got and everything.
But we haven't got many people.
Just where we're not going to last.
Yeah, reality check, everybody. Exactly. But again, defence not a priority for this government. So it's not like the world's getting any more dangerous. So that's fine. And just before we go to break and we get to calls, I just want to talk also about these weight loss drugs. Manjaro is the one which the NHS has been approved to use, and there are millions of people. I think just millions and millions of people who apparently would technically be eligible for this weight loss jab. But severely obese, millions of them are not going to be eligible for it because they basically ruled that although 3.5 million are eligible, they're only going to allow 220,000 patients, fewer than 1 in 10, to be given the drug over the next 3 years. They've been years on waiting lists. They've got BMI, I think it's of 30, and they've got another serious condition, really weight-related. And there's something typical outcry. We go, it's awful. These things should be available. I mean, these drugs are very expensive. We're going to talk to Carl Hennigan later in the show, and he's spoken to us before, actually. The evidence for these drugs is they don't help everybody lose weight. They help a lot of people lose weight. However, the moment you come off them, guess what happens? Put the weight back on again, unless you change your diet and lifestyle. Well, you could just change your diet and lifestyle and then lose the weight anyway. I mean, if you get that's what everyone else does. And there's obviously this big outcry. The idea that we have any spare money when people are not getting treated for every cancer, to people on waiting lists for heart surgery, that we have any spare money for fat people being given a jab to help them do what they could do for free. I find no, I'm sorry, but you could be any sodding weight you want. I don't care, but it's not my problem.
Yeah. I think the problem is not because of the number of fat people that are out there and the effect the drugs has and all the rest of it. It's down to the fact that capacity in the NHS, cost for the NHS, ability to deliver, ability to monitor, because you have to monitor these drugs afterwards through blood tests and all the rest. There's a lot more. It wouldn't have been an issue if the now Secretary of State for Health hadn't turned around and said they will be available for everyone. And they're not. So he's made a pledge, or is it a milestone? I
just don't understand the urge that so many people of the great and the good, they're absolutely obsessed with us not putting, junk food in our mouths. But they seem to be absolutely even more obsessed with giving us drugs to deal with things which are perfectly dealt with completely naturally, which I find absolutely extraordinary. I don't think anyone should be entitled to. By the way, the amount of food you're not going to eat because you're on this drug, you'll save the money. I think the drugs, I think it's about £200 or £300 a month. So, you're probably going to be eating fewer takeaways, which is presumably why you're that fat anyway, which you're entitled to be. I'm not judging. I don't care what you weigh. You're free to eat yourself to oblivion if you want. I don't care. But don't expect me to pay for the context there. If you're eating fewer takeaways, my guess is you could probably afford the jab yourself. Maybe get your family to chip in. I'm sorry. Put the chips down and get your family to chip in.